All right, I'd like to get things started. I have 7:33, and I'd like to welcome everybody that is present and who is online. This is the Utah Lake Commission meeting. This is Thursday, and what is it? December 9th for the public record. We have the agenda, and we'll follow it as outlined. We might need to make small modifications until we are absolutely sure we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Okay, we'll follow it as outlined. We'll begin with, let's go right to our action items. Action items 2A. Approve governing board minutes from September 16th, 2021. Anybody that has anything that they needed to add or clarify in those minutes? Has there been anything submitted, Eric, to your knowledge? Okay, I would entertain a motion for those minutes.
I move that we approve the governing board minutes from September 16th, 2021.
Okay.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, item number 2B, review monthly budget report. This would be through September through October. Any questions that any of the members have for staff on this report? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
We approve the monthly budget reports for September and October 2021.
Okay. I have a motion.
I'll second.
And a second, and I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, item number 2C is review fraud risk assessment. Eric, do you want to just preface this a little bit?
Yeah, so the fraud risk assessment is just a state auditor report. We went through that file, and the one question that I had of the board was whether or not everyone is getting their once every 4-year training. So let me pull it up and I'll give you that actual name of that. So it's called the Local Special Service Districts and Interlocal Entities Introductory Training for Municipal Officers for Cities, Towns, etc. And it's on the auditor training site. So I'm just wondering, I know that most elected officials take that. If we have everyone completing that, that puts us into the low risk assessment value. Everything else is the only other unchecked items are ones that could only change if we had one of us was a CPA that was reviewing things, and so there are some unchangeable items. But this annual training would be every 4-year training would be something that would be great if we could get a report from everybody, all the board members, just shoot me an email that says, yes, I took this once in the last 4 years, and then we're set to go on checking that last box.
Okay, so do you feel like this is a current action item, or is it just a follow-up that anybody that's on the board just emails you back?
Well,
when we bring it back?
I will send out an email with the link to it specifically so that board members can look at that and verify whether they've taken it or not, and then we'll be good to go. Otherwise, the fraud risk assessment just needs to be viewed by the board once a year. So this will be our assessment.
All right.
Sure. A question on that. I know I sit on the Lone Peak Special Service District, and they required us to take it independent from the city council one that we took. So
that would be
So you're good, the Utah Lake Commission is good to have one from another special service district.
Yes, and that is the expectation with oftentimes with city elected officials that are serving on various boards, as long as they've taken that once in the last 4 years, regardless of where it is.
All right, so let's just say this, we will need a action item that we have reviewed the fraud risk assessment. But to clarify, Eric will be sending out an email with a link. If you have not viewed that, and there's a couple tests you take to afterwards, make sure you understand things, and then to reply back to him so that we can lower our score. Does that sound fair? Okay. So can I get a motion on the review of the risk assessment?
I would make a motion that we approve the fraud risk assessment action item and the review that took place.
Okay. I have a motion
I'll second.
and a second, and I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, item number 2D, approval of the official grammar request policy. It was in our packet. Is there any questions regarding the grammar policy? I think those that are elected officials understand that as well. It's something that we deal with.
We had a long-standing grammar policy. We just needed to add, because of recent changes, we needed to add the cost side of it. So if someone makes a request, and it's a big request, then it clarifies what we can charge for per page.
Any other questions that anybody has? And if you're online, and I might just pause a little bit. If there is a question, just kind of speak up. Any questions here present? Okay, then I will call for a motion.
Move we approve the current grammar request policy with the changes noted.
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, and I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Item number,
Sorry, I didn't catch who was the second on that for
item number E is approval of an official electronic board meeting policy. This is to just perpetuate what we currently do, even though we might be able to meet in person and social distance. I think with this size of a board and in various places, it's very, very handy, and it's with technology, we can still get things done. So is there any questions on the electronic board policy? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion.
Move we approve the official electronic board meeting policy as currently written.
Okay, I have a motion
I'll second.
and a second, and I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Sure, you're going to say aye in your house. We knew that. All right. Any opposed? Okay, passes. Now move on to item number 3, and for the director's update. We'll turn time over to you, Eric.
Okay, again, thanks everyone for being here. We'll just go through, sorry, I didn't have the action items up on there. I had that on my presentation for us. First item on the report is the Utah Lake water levels. We are approximately, even though the chart to the left is June, this is about where we are. We're at 4.5 feet below full right now in Utah Lake. For those that aren't familiar with the lake depths, Utah Lake is approximately 10 feet deep on average, and so 4.5 feet shallower than full means the lake gets it's navigable, but it becomes a challenge below probably 5 feet under full or compromise. So quite impressive considering the extreme drought that we've been in, that we still have this much water. We've been as low as 6.5 feet below full since in the last 5 years. So we've had less water in the lake, but hopefully we get lots more of this rain that's coming down right now throughout the rest of the winter. The chart to the right, this is back to 1894, just to kind of give you a view of where we have been. It's very cyclical. We've had some pretty extreme droughts, but it looks like we are following that trend of variability in the lake levels. So let's see. Wanted to talk about our Wakara Way Kickoff. This was a meeting that we held just the other day, and we had great attendance from all the partners. So right now we have our working group that includes Forestry, Fire and State Lands, Mountain Land Association of Governments, Utah County, Vineyard City, Orem City, and Provo City, and then some private land. So the Holdaway family that has been a major organizer and partner with us on the Wakara Way project has folks attending as well. And kick the planning off for that. This is the schedule, the Gantt chart on the right. The plan is to have all of our land agreements, engineering, trail delineation, and permitting completed by the end of the spring. So they're showing end of April, and so sometime before summer is what I expect that will conclude with. And then we can switch to, they will produce all of the construction bid documents that we need to undergo the trail construction and to complete the grazing plan and fencing project that is involved in that. It was exciting to get a good portion of our board down for a tour of the Provo River Delta project. They made huge strides this last summer, because this was one of the silver linings to our drought, is that it made that area where they're working extremely dry compared to what it normally looks like. And so the machinery was able to work in there a little more efficiently, and they're making great progress. This is going to be a beautiful asset to the valley, to reconnect the river system to the lake in a delta system rather than just in the channelized version that we have had for the last number of decades in the tail end of Provo River. This next spring, we'll reach out to the project managers and organize another tour to kind of get those that weren't able to come, or those that would like to see what's happening in the spring back down there again. So watch for an invite with that. We'll work with Melissa to find another date come early summer, so that we're not out there in 100-degree weather like we did early this last summer. Okay. Let me just hand this off real quick.
This meeting is being recorded.
Was that a comment? Maybe not.
Lots of seats up here.
Computer was freezing up. Okay, another item to report on our Marina camera network. The plan has been, we've been pushing to get funding to connect all of our 5 marinas through a camera network system, where the goal in connecting them isn't so much that we want them all tied together, but rather we don't have internet at all of our marinas. And we talked with a consultant, and they are able to transmit from the various marinas, because it's going across the lake through a radio system. They can send all of the information to one hub that does have internet and provide great information on all of our access points, all of our marina access points to folks that would be going to visit those. And so it'll give not only in the marina conditions, but also lake water conditions, and also provide traffic counters through a video camera system that will allow us for the first time ever to have an accurate accounting system for lake visitation. So we're excited about that. We submitted a grant for the motorboat access grant and we received that, and then submitted one additional grant for the marine enhancements to complete the needed funding for that. So the total project cost is around $120,000, and that is all covered with grant dollars. So exciting to see that moving ahead. We have a meeting scheduled next week with the winner of that contract to get going on that.
It looks like the American Fork had the best internet. Is that right?
Yes.
That surprises me. Because in talking to our IT guy, he said, I hope we have enough I mean, it seemed like a weak source.
It doesn't require a lot. So this system is self-contained. It'll have its own server. And so largely it just needs the tie into it. It doesn't need a ton of bandwidth because it's got its own server. So we'll work with the marina operator and figure out the best way to make that a usable connection.
Great.
Okay. We also wanted to have Ben Steierman give us a brief update on the legislative appropriations.
Good morning. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of the funding that was allocated for this fiscal year that will affect Utah Lake. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you
I'm
great.
going to try to get you on the screen.
Oh, my apologies. All right. Well, I'll start talking while you're working on that.
Okay.
There was, out of last year's funding, there was $2.6 million that was earmarked for marina enhancements. And we were able to fully fund all of the proposals that we received almost perfectly with the funding that was allocated. This funding, along with the matching funds, in most cases, is supporting the following projects. So we have American Fork City Marina with just over $1 million that's largely focused on their parking and utilities to their marina. They also have a beach frontage aspect and a shoreline improvement portion of the project that I'll touch on later, that was partially funded through the shoreline restoration grants as well. Saratoga Springs has their southern marina, was awarded $750,000, where in phase one, they're going to build a watercraft rental building, improve the landscape along Spinnaker Bay Drive, and expand the parking lot for both lake access and beach access. The North Marina in Saratoga Springs was awarded $536,000. This is largely for land acquisition for improved road access and alignment, and then also to construct an access road and parking lot to get to the marina there, which would also fund the dredging of the existing harbor that's within the existing jetty. Linda Marina had two proposals. One was a boat ramp, and an extension of a boat ramp that came in at $31,000, and then the patching and repaving of their parking lot for $120,000. And then Eric touched on his proposal that came in just under $120,000 that'll help fund the camera network. And then to move on to the shoreline restoration project, there was a total of $800,000 available. We were very close to being able to fully fund all of the proposals, but we did have to give a slight haircut to American Fork City's proposal, which we were able to pull some out of the marina fund to help soften that, since some of those aspects qualified there. So again, most of these had matching funds that helped support these the following projects, but Saratoga Springs was awarded a total of $633,000 to improve shoreline access for the trail segment from Sunrise Circle to Eagle Park. which will improve access for trail users, but also improves the ability to maintain the shoreline in the area. It's a very big deal for folks who are working on the shoreline. American Fork City was awarded $150,000, plus that $36,000 we were able to take from the Marina Enhancement Fund. This helps support the trail, paving of the trail from the marina, and then the main focus was vegetation control and beach improvements on the shoreline area down there by the marina. And then lastly, we awarded $25,000 to Central Utah Water Conservancy District for their Hobble Creek project. This, the primary function of that is to control noxious weeds on the Hobble Creek Delta project site. And then Eric already touched on the Wakara Way project, but we did just recently complete a contract for $513,000 with PEC, which is part of a larger $5.4 million appropriation. This is largely for the design aspect of it. And as Eric mentioned, the remaining funds will be spent later in the year. And that's all from me.
Thanks, Ben.
Absolutely.
If I didn't look deep enough into the packet, I apologize. Can we get a printout of that?
Yeah. Well, I'll get a summarized version of it and include it in
I'm not sure my staff knows about our receiving that. So I'd love to break the good news to them.
Yeah, sorry, and hopefully everybody got word. Morgan sent our coordinator for that area sent out some notices yesterday and said she'd received responses back from all but the Water Conservancy District. So hopefully everybody's in the know, but if not, you feel free to reach out to us and we can also provide a breakdown.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. We'll now move on to item number 4 is the 2022 legislative session, the proposed Utah Lake Authority legislation. We have Representative Brady Brammer with us, and we'll turn the time over to you, Representative.
All right. Looks like I'm connected and ready to go. All right. So in terms of what I wanted to talk about today is where the bill's at, what changes have been made, what the process we've been through. One of the important things to understand on this bill is when most people review a bill, they're getting a bill of somewhere between 100 and maybe 300 lines of bill. You know, it's not, this is a little different because it's setting up an overall structure. It's more like an operating agreement that takes a little bit more to it. And so as you're looking at the bill, you know, the general purpose is to provide authority and resources to improve Utah Lake. Stated simply, that's what the intent is. As far as the structure, it has various subparts of the bill, and the areas that I would recommend that people focus on are and understand what those subsections discuss are authority and powers, policies and objectives, and then also authority of other agencies as far as how they interact with others. What I've found is that as people that have not, that aren't commonly reviewing bills look at this, they're oftentimes looking at policies and objectives and confusing those for authorities and powers or things like that. And so as we've received feedback, oftentimes I'm saying, well, you know, you're not looking at the right part of the bill as far as what this does. So just, you know, that's been an issue that we've been dealing with. Now, as far as the process, this has been through several interim committees at the legislature, but outside of the legislature, there's also been the Utah Water Task Force. That's involved 68 different volunteers, several large group meetings, 10 subcommittees, numerous subcommittee meetings. In August, we received reports from those subcommittees, 10 different reports. From there, a drafting committee was formed to synthesize those reports, to make recommendations and suggested changes. That drafting committee has been in process. That drafting committee made some changes. I received an initial draft bill, but they said this doesn't have the other things that we want. That was on 11/16. It also did not include any of the tax issues yet. The drafting committee submitted additional changes on Monday. I incorporated those changes sent to the bill drafter on Tuesday. And then we're waiting for those to come back. Additionally, we're waiting for some of the tax changes. So that's where it's at right now. And so, you know, one of the issues that we've gone through is oftentimes people will get ahead of it and they try to tell me, you know, well, how will this play in the politics of it? And I keep telling, you know, I've told members of the task force, many others, you know, right now we're on the policy side. We're not yet on the politics side. We're moving towards the politics side once we get a draft and once it's going before the legislature. Then it's a matter of arithmetic. You know, that's the way that legislation works. It's arithmetic. There's a number of votes and you have to get them. But right now we're trying to get the best policy that we can that accomplishes the stated objective, which is provide authority and means to improve Utah Lake. So that's kind of where the process is at. As far as the changes, you know, a lot of the subcommittee reports that came back, they had really helpful background and really helpful, a lot of them had fantastic recommendations, and we'll go through those. But a lot of them are, I think, pieces of advice to do this wisely. And it's not necessarily something you would put in the code, but it's something that I hope that the Utah Lake Authority Board would take account of. You know, and my intent is to provide each of those subcommittee reports to the board, because it's not just here's how you should do the bill. It's these are the water rights issues, or these are the environmental issues that are behind this, and that needs to be taken into account. And I think that that's a really valuable aspect of what we've gone through over the last year in doing that. So I wanted to detail some of the changes, show the language that we have sent to be included as much as possible. And so first, the biggest concern is the disposition of lands. Now, in trying to do anything with Utah Lake, we have the Utah Lake Restoration Act in 2018 that was there that you have to deal with. Legislatively, it's already there in code. Now, in terms of, so what we've done is we've added the language in section 205, the Lake Authority shall have no ability to make any fee title disposition of lands within Utah Lake, whether or not these lands are submerged. Okay. If there is going to be, you know, if Lake Restoration's company is going to do their application, they're going to have to do it under the 2018 Act. It will not come through the Utah Lake Authority in any way. And the Utah Lake Authority will not have the power to do what they want. Okay. So that's, at the outset, that was one of the concerns. Now, previously it was already, they already said, you know, they've submitted their application with DNR, and that will continue as stated, and Utah Lake Authority won't deal with it, but moving forward they would. That's not the case anymore. Utah Lake Authority will do nothing under the 2018 Utah Lake Restoration Act. Ownership of the lake. Previously, ownership of the lake bed was transferred to ULA. The change is ownership remains with DFFSL, but the management of Utah Lake is delegated to the ULA. Now we have, you know, some of the language said to maximize certain things, whether it be the health of the lake, recreation of the lake, economic potential of the lake, water quality. And additionally, there was language that said that it is to restore or rehabilitate the lake. The problem is, you know, I think maximized created more of a mandate towards something than we really intended. And so we changed that to enhance whenever it had it, because ultimately there are a lot of competing interests. And if you say you need to maximize this interest, it could become at the expense of another one, whereas enhance allows you a little bit easier of a balancing test between the competing interests. So for example, one competing interest that we'll talk about a little bit is, you know, you've got a Provo airport right on the shoreline of the lake. And you also have birds that, you know, there's a both figurative and literal collision that can happen there. And so, you know, if you're saying you need to maximize the airport, that could come very easily at the expense of, you know, the wildlife. Whereas if you're trying to enhance both, you can balance those interests and try to come to a more reasoned decision. Additionally, the change from restore and rehabilitate to improve is the lake has been at different states at different times. So if you're going to say you need to restore it to a certain level, you're going to have a good idea scientifically exactly what you're restoring it to, at which time frame, and how exactly it looked at that time. I think that's a really hard thing to give a government body as a mandate. And so instead, you know, a little better and more achievable goal is to improve. And so that's kind of some of the direction. And I don't know that those are substantive changes, but I think they change the tone and the ability of the board to operate and feel like they're operating well within the statute. Let's go to grants. There was no explicit authority. I think that it was there, but we wanted to make it explicit because that's a major part of the funding. You know, you're going to have funding. You know, the Utah Lake Commission relies on grants, and it's obviously a major part of any environmental issue. Water rights. The previous version, I've never been trying to get anyone's water rights through it. And every time one of the, what they call the water dogs, the attorneys that are over water rights would come to me and say, we have to protect the water rights. I'd say, tell me exactly how you want it. And they'd give it to me and I'd say, all right, I'll do it. And I'd put it in the bill. And so there were about 15 different versions of protecting the water rights that each one of these water dogs got their thing saying, I'm not going to mess with your water rights. Well, we've consolidated that down, and I found the two most stubborn. I was joking with them yesterday. I found the two most stubborn, curmudgeonly water rights attorneys. And I said, you guys draft the language, and I'm going to send all the other stubborn, curmudgeonly water attorneys to you to fight with you about your language. And so that's kind of how we did it. And it's along the lines of what's here below. The ULA shall respect and not interfere with the water rights or operation of water facilities or water projects associated with Utah Lake. That was the language that they wanted. You know, it's battling attorneys. They all have their own specific language that they want. So, you know, we'll go through that way. There are some additional interests that we added that when you get to the policies and objectives portion of the bill, it has, you know, listed out various environmental and water quality and other objectives that you're trying to obtain, or that the board should be moving towards. We added these, which include Native American history, historical sites and artifacts, as well as the Provo Airport and their ability to operate and grow, as things that they need to be balancing as they make decisions. We've got the Utah Lake Restoration Act. Previously, the bill had amendments and a role with the Utah Lake Restoration Act moving forward, but not with past applications under the Utah Lake Restoration Act. The new bill has no statutory amendment or connection or role with the ULRA. Advisory and technical committees. One of the things that a lot of the groups wanted was they wanted to make sure that there would be advisory and technical committees. Now, it was in there that they could have that and that the board, and it was always anticipated. In fact, it specifically says that any advisory and technical committees to the Utah Lake Commission continue with the Utah Lake Authority. And this just makes it a little more explicit. Obviously, there's a lot of issues that are highly technical that the board obviously needs input on. And so it would be unwise for them not to take advantage of technical committees. Board makeup. Previously, the board makeup was a 14-member board. We've added an additional appointee by the Department of Environmental Quality to make it a 15-member board. And I will tell you a little bit of inside baseball. I always had the intention of that. There's a reason why it was, you typically don't want an even numbered board. I always intended to add one more, and it was kind of part of the process and part of the negotiation. And it was more just where the greatest need was that I was holding that kind of as a political stick as it went through the legislature last year. And I think that the appropriate and the best policy is to have it be a member of DEQ. So if you're not familiar with our state government, there's essentially, when it comes to environmental issues, there's two major departments. You've got DNR and DEQ. And so this provides good representation from both. Underneath them, you have Department of Water Quality, Department of Wildlife Resources, and a lot of these sub-agencies, but DNR and DEQ are the major ones. One of the things that I really liked was a suggestion was we have various efforts to monitor issues along the lake. And those have come and gone at different times, and the data has been somewhat variable depending on who's managing it and how much time. If I'm going to send out the slides also, I'll send out a link to everyone. So if you're typing furiously, I'll send it out. I hated it when I was in school and teachers would go through something really fast and not send us the materials. And I feel like there's a bunch of students over here, so I feel like I need to do it that way. The baseline monitoring, if the intent truly is to improve the lake and you're not measuring, you don't know if you're achieving. And so if we don't set up a criteria for baseline monitoring and a consistent duty to monitor it, then, we've got some problems. And so I really liked the addition of that. I think that'll make a big difference. Notice and transparency. The Utah Lake Authority is subject to the Open and Public Meetings Act. It always has been. There's also some additional timelines with regards to any improvement plan that have longer timelines than the traditional Open and Public Meetings Act. That was already in the bill. What we did add was some people were saying, well, we really want to be affirmatively notified when something happens if you're going to hold a public meeting. And I think that's completely fair. And sometimes finding agendas for public meetings, if you're not familiar with that process, is kind of a pain. And if you're not thinking about when they're going to hold all their meetings, you're probably not going to be checking enough. And I think this is something that maybe we should add to the Open and Public Meetings Act, but an email list that public agencies have that provide affirmative notice when there is a public meeting. And so that will be in there. Now on the taxation piece, the way that this, so if you're looking at it in a really 30,000 foot view, in many ways, the Utah Lake Authority acts as a special service district for the lake, but it's not really, it can't really be done like a special service district because it is a state-owned asset. And so in many ways, this is setting up a state level special service district, and it would tax similar to a state level special service district. But it would need to follow truth and taxation principles. It would be based on a per sewer connection tax. And initially my intent is to have that the board would have to set whatever the tax rate is following a study, but they cannot go above $2 without legislative approval to increase that amount. So they could start out at 50 cents and over the years increase it. But they'd need to come back to the legislature for more than $2. And then that taxing authority would be over Utah County only. In many ways, that's because the board is largely, you've got 8 members appointed by the Utah Council of Governments from Utah County. If, I've had several people say, well, why don't we open it up to, why don't we have board members from Salt Lake County within that Council of Governments? And I say, I'm more than happy to, if you want to open up your tax base to Salt Lake County. And then they back away. And so, if you're going to control the lake, if you're going to be taxed to improve the lake, you need to have some control, and that's the intent. And so, and then the other thing that we would have is what's called a Lakeshore Improvement Zone. Now, this would be an opt-in that a city in that area for a half mile from the lake could adopt certain zoning and planning principles that largely tie into, are they treating the lake as the feature that it is? Are they providing public access into the lake? And then one thing that the schools asked for in exchange for that was they didn't want big box retail in those areas. So they don't want like a Costco or a Walmart to be, in an area where there's a tax increment issue. Now that doesn't mean that all retail would be excluded. If you have things that are, features of the lake, you could have restaurants, you could have, for example, boat rentals, even like a boat sales shop. I don't know that a car dealership would be, it has to be, the retail kind of needs to be tied to the lake. But, part of that is to provide incentives to intelligently develop the areas that due to increased infrastructure costs it's harder to develop. And so it provides the cities a tool should they opt into that as a CRA, but this one would be called the Lakeshore Improvement Zone. And it would be a half mile in cities. And then for unincorporated land that is in the county, it would be up to a mile. And so those are the major changes. The tax piece is taking more time than we thought, because if you're setting up a government entity, that's one bill drafter. Now you're bringing in another bill drafter that's more specific to taxation. And so that it's kind of a little bit harder. Moving forward, we'll finalize the changes. We'll submit the changes to the task force who asked for a lot of these changes. So we'll submit a draft bill to all of them. I'll submit it to the Lake Commission as well. And then if you have any recommendations I'm trying to limit the points of contact because as we get into the session, I want to make sure that I'm listening to the right people. And if everyone sends any recommendations to me, I will get lost. It will be a little tough. What we've been trying to do is send the drafting committee, which is, if you know Warren Peterson, he's kind of the head of that. He's the main person. I don't know if there's someone on the Utah Lake Commission that you would like me to interface with as the point person. If there's any recommendations from the commission, I'm more than happy to do that. And then we'll finalize a number of the bill, and then the politics begin. So that's where it's at right now. We anticipate, I don't know how long the tax piece is going to take, but I think that the other piece should be coming out within the next 2 weeks, other than the taxes. And so I'm hoping to get at least that out to everyone. But you can see at least the intention with the taxes. You have any questions?
Yes, the question I'd ask, does the commission want a point person for Representative Brammer to talk with, kind of coalesce any suggestions and submit it to him? I could see that would be a very big problem to have a lot of people coming at you at once. Any thoughts?
I think it'd be an excellent thing. Something that we could go to as well.
Yeah.
So I would think we should appoint somebody.
I agree. Is there anyone who would like to do it? I think that there's a number of people who have been vested. Oh, I thought I pushed it. Is it not on? I don't know. Mine is dead. It doesn't want me to talk. Anyways, I think it would be beneficial for us to have someone on there. I would suggest somebody, one of the cities, of course, that have lakefront property. Maybe Mayor Fulmer would be great for that. She's had a lot of interest in it and has done a lot of good things. So that's my suggestion.
Mayor Fulmer, would you be willing to accept that? Okay. Okay. Well, I think, this is not on the agenda, but I think that we could come to a consensus that if Mayor Fulmer would accept that, we'll funnel information through you to him. And that would be from the commission level, correct? There might be other interests we have as different cities, but we can communicate differently with that. Okay. Is everybody in agreement to that? Anybody, I'm just going to say, is there anybody that would oppose that? Okay. Mayor Fulmer, you're it. Okay. All right. Any questions for Representative Brammer? Okay. Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you for your attention and time.
Okay. We'll now move on to item number 5. This is an action item. It's review and approval of a 2022 legislative strategy and advocacy priorities. And maybe just to make this clean, we'll add into that motion Mayor Fulmer, because it really is what it is. So Eric, do you want to review these?
Yeah. So we have on the legislative strategy and advocacy priorities, we have the executive director will follow any legislation that has a nexus to Utah Lake. The 2022 legislature is pursuing the legislation, the Utah Lake Authority, intended to replace or change the structure of the Utah Lake Commission. The executive committee will provide timely feedback to Utah Lake Commission staff regarding media, legislative, or entity requests that relate to the Utah Lake Commission related legislation. Utah Lake Commission staff liaise with state legislators, governing board members, and all other government and NGO representatives in an effort to facilitate sharing of information and achieve the best possible outcomes for the lake. Utah Lake Commission staff help facilitate and engage with entities or individuals who have questions or concerns about Utah Lake, or who have projects or proposed projects that impact the lake or its shorelines. The Utah Lake Commission Governing Board supports staff in seeking funds that support the goals of the master plan, collaborative efforts that increase or improve lake access, increase awareness of the lake through education and promotion, restoration, and conservation projects that benefit water quality and or the shoreline of the lake, and develop multiple use amenities for current and future generations. Governing board members with questions or concerns about Utah Lake related issues should reach out to Utah Lake Commission staff to discuss this, and staff will prioritize these issues and follow up with solutions that will be presented at subsequent board meetings or directly to impacted board members as appropriate. Support legislation and other efforts that promote transit-oriented development and transit-adjacent trail development around rail stations that allow increased lakeshore access. Utah Lake Commission supports policies and funding opportunities to improve both quantity and quality of water being delivered to and found in Utah Lake. Utah Lake Commission support funding for water reclamation and advanced reclamation treatment technology projects. Utah Lake Commission supports conservation easements along the Utah Lake shoreline where habitat and open space can be held for current and future generations. All right, a lot of reading, sorry.
It's okay. Okay. Is there any questions or anything that this is a living document, I think, as we pass it. And if we need to modify it in a future board meeting, we can. This is just kind of the first stab at things to bring order and in direction to Eric, to Eric's defense. I would say that last year during the session, I was, as the chair, I felt like I was a little bit micromanaging, and I was protective of the commission. I know he was as well, and it just seemed like we need some rules to govern that, and so we felt like this was an appropriate step to do that. So, anybody have any questions, concerns, or additions?
Mayor, I just wanted to say thank you. I think this is very helpful to us as commissions. As commission members, a lot of us do go to the Hill during the session, and having this, even though it's a very long list, it is comprehensive, and we'll know what to discuss as commissioners, separate from the things that we discuss as members of our individual cities. So I appreciate this effort. If there are things that we can, that you would like us to discuss as a whole, as we individually advocate for different areas, could you please keep us up to date? I would like us to have maybe even a weekly update, a little email that says every week, this is what's happened this week, this is how you can help us. This is, do you have any concerns or questions? Because things happen very quickly up there. In addition, I've been thinking, not that I've been jumping ahead, but our governing board meeting schedule for the year. I would like to request that we have another meeting in January, a regular meeting in January prior to the session, so that anything that has changed between now and right before the session starts, that we can have an update and that we can actually have some action items if necessary with that, because I think this is a very important, an important matter that is coming before us. It changes our whole dynamics of what the commission has been. We've already mentioned the students. One of these students is one of my constituents and has reached out to me to make sure that I know what is happening and that we can make sure that our voice is heard with lots of different issues surrounding the lake. With that, in January, I would like us to have maybe either our steering committee or our technical committee give us their perspective on this, and if it changes anything with regards to the scientific study of the lake. So those are my proposals, and I don't know if we need a motion. Yes, Brady. Representative.
Mayor, just so you're aware, the bylaws say that we do need 4 board members to request a special meeting outside of our standard. One.
Okay. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way as I do, but I really feel that this is a significant change to the lake. And although we've been discussing it during COVID and online discussions and back and forth, and not many of us are on the task force. So I just feel like it would be beneficial to us as we go forward, that we really are sound on what is happening and that we can voice our concerns to Representative Brammer, now through Mayor Fulmer, but that we also have an opportunity to ask more questions as it gets closer to the session, because things happen very quickly up there.
I would be the second voice to do that.
Okay. I'll be a third. I think that's great. I don't know if I'm considered one of those that can do that. I'm on the board, but I don't, it's something like steering committee or something.
I'll be the 4th.
Okay. And
I think that just with having 4, I don't think we need to have an action item or a vote up down agenda. That is just, we can just note for the record that we're going to change. And let's set a date for that January meeting.
Do we know what the first day of legislative?
January
night session
18th.
is? Yeah. 19th?
January 18th.
18.
And we might need one in February, but we can go through that process of getting 4 board members to and do that with an email.
And just so you know, I mean, anyone can contact me at any time. It's more with the drafting stuff. It's helpful to have that because that's it's a little different. But this is really helpful to have a strategy and priorities and things like that. I mean, I chair our Utah County Caucus for the legislators, and I spend the entire year trying to go around to different areas and I schedule lunches with different stakeholders and things like that, just to try to figure out exactly what they want. Oftentimes there's things they want, but they don't tell us or they're not clear about it. And so something like this is really helpful. And I promise you'll find some listening ears from our Utah County delegation to listen to whatever the commission has to say.
So what date works? Right,
13th.
the 13th? Great.
Just hold it at the regular time. I'll reach out to Lisa that schedules this room and we can hold it here.
Okay.
And presumably I'll look at the schedule, but we'll try to schedule a technical committee meeting either the day before the Wednesday or the prior week.
I just think it would be important that we have that technical committee voice, as well as maybe even someone from the steering committee to talk about the work that they're doing and how this might impact it, because we did have it on the slides, but hearing from them specifically might be really beneficial to the governing board.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'll ask for a motion then to review and approve the legislative strategy and advocacy priorities. And let's say this, whoever makes that motion, if you just add in Mayor Fulmer as a contact, that'll really formalize it up.
I'll make a motion that we adopt and approve the 2022 legislative strategy and advocacy priorities, as well as appoint Mayor Fulmer as our representative to the Utah Lake Commission.
To Senator or Representative Brammer.
For Representative Brammer.
Okay, all right.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Okay, now move on to item number 6 is Vineyard Shoreline Public Access Point Highlight. And Mayor Fulmer, it looks like you brought a small team with you here. It might work, the forward button.
Okay. Thank you for having us. So the last time that we came and presented, we were talking about the overall master plan of our shoreline. And in this recent project, we wanted to highlight one of the park areas that we had been working on with our partners, the Department of Natural Resources, the Army Corps, Forestry, Fire and State Lands, of course, Utah Lake Commission, the county, and then our city partners. So I have my team here who's going to kind of show what we've been doing, how we've been cleaning up the area that's been contributing to this project that TRCC participated for our beachfront property. And so we're really excited to talk about it. And so I'll turn the time over to them and add in if you guys would like me to. So thank you.
Hello, this is Nassim, City Engineer for City Vineyard. So I'll be starting off this and then handing off to my great partner, Cash Hansey, who's in the planning department. So the first one, we were talking about the Sunset Beach Park. And actually, this is my second time coming here to Utah Lake Commission to kind of present. The first time I kind of introduced myself, having seen here since May. And actually, this Sunset Beach Park stuck out to me when I first came to City Vineyard, first to kind of scope the place out, interview and actually kind of see how I like Vineyard, but also to bring my family to kind of showcase what Vineyard is. And Sunset Beach Park was definitely a place that was kind of like a focus for myself and my family, especially my 2 kids who really enjoyed just running around and causing havoc everywhere. And I was grateful that the havoc was being caused outside my house at that particular point. But Sunset Beach Park is actually a really awesome type of focus. Oh, there we go, clicker. Is it working? Yeah, 1 forward, please. Well, Sunset Beach Park was actually a great focus because it's a unique place coming from Florida where we have lots of parks along lakes. Here in Vineyard, as you can see, like with the park on here, this is a picture that was taken back in 2013 with Sunset Beach Park currently was. And as you can see, there are a lot of undeveloped land. You can see the overlays of the roads, which are currently in place now. But that little area right by the lake in 2013 was a landscaping company, and having kind of placed equipment and I'm sure other types of fertilizers and so forth near the park. And I'm sure a lot of people can appreciate the not so great effects that you have those types of things near bodies of water. But this is from 2013. You can see where the shoreline is. If you go one more forward. And then here's another picture of it in about 2020, where you can see a lot more developments going around. And actually, if you notice, you can see where the shoreline is compared to where it was in 2013. But with that being said, that there's obviously City Vineyard and Utah Lake Commission has kind of recognized the need to preserve a place not just for development, but definitely a place for family on that. So you can see where the development is going on the north side, and then some development going on the south side. So City of Vineyard, through a partnership with the developers, through a development agreement, and obviously through partnerships with Utah Lake, put together the kind of a park plan, and where the developer has kind of pushed forward on, has pushed forward on it to ensure that they kind of develop the park in an area that's central to not just specifically one development, but kind of central to Vineyard as a whole. And if you can't see it on this map, but north of this, not too far north of this, you'll have the downtown Vineyard, which is currently going through. So Sunset Beach Park, and it is actually located in a very, I'll say, a key particular spot where where it actually serves the use of multiple users and a diverse type of users, from single family on the south to multifamily to the north, and then even denser to the north of that. And this particular slide right here actually shows the design of it, partnering through an architect, landscape architect, not to be mistaken from an engineer, just to make sure I put that out there, but a landscape architect who's very good at their job in order to kind of put, I'll say, I use the word feng shui with him quite a bit, to kind of put the feng shui to make it more of a usable park, because oftentimes engineers, if given the task, kind of make it more functional, but functional and usability doesn't really coincide oftentimes. So with the parking, and then you of course have a lot of green space. So the green spaces you can see is more towards the actual lake versus the parking and any other types of structures towards the lake, which is actually very beneficial on that. It opens up the lake and it opens up the kind of the natural reserves towards that. If you can see, there's a phase 2 up there. If you go to the next slide, sir. Yeah, don't worry. So you can see where the phase 2 is. Those are actual pictures of, those are pictures of recent pictures of how the park looks. You can see where it has a slide which is unique, and it's unique in a way where it was taken from a German architect type slides, resembling a slide structure that is very prominent around lakes on that. And then of course you have a nice big open area, and a nice big open area with sand and very low impact when it comes to the development. So the biggest thing on this is you can see with the layout and also some of these pictures, and of course Cash will go into more specifics on other things where it's kind of like a low impact, but low impact to the environment, but high impact to the community. Because, and I can attest to myself that take my kids when they come to Vineyard, this is definitely one of the parks that they like to kind of roll around to. And then I'm going to hand it off to Cash.
All right. Yeah, in that previous slide, there was a picture of a slide, and of that slide, there was a picture of a slide. And as I was talking to the designer of this park, he mentioned that he designed that slide to mimic, it was a flume slide that was once at Geneva Resort that sat near this park's actual location. And so there's a lot of heritage that went into the design of this park, trying to bring back the history that was once there. This slide right here is just discussing the master plan. And as you can see, the center, there's a little green triangle. That's where this park sits. So it sits between where we have our downtown development and then the Wakara Way section of our waterfront to the south. So this section of park just acts as a great divider between a developed and energetic downtown lakefront beach access to the quiet and preserved Wakara Way area. And those designs are ongoing right now with our consultant to finish up what we want to see along the lakefront. And talking to the designer, he said that his number one goal was to provide access to the lake. And he wanted to do this for both local residents as well as provide regional access to outside visitors. So as you can see here, the picture there shows how the park connects to the lakefront trail. And it continues on all the way up north, as well as we've provided a lot of bicycle amenities. We have a fix-it kit, lots of parking, lots of bicycle parking and restrooms. One of the coolest areas of this park is we've created kind of a miniature amphitheater towards the lake. This area is on a slope, so it provides excellent viewing for watching the sunset, It provides spaces for educational opportunities, for concert spaces, for youth gatherings. It's a really unique area, and where it sits with having housing development on both sides and connecting to the trail, it's a really unique space for that kind of gathering. Do you have anything?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, there's so many opportunities, and we feel like our master plan's really coming together, and you can kind of see how this is tying in. It's definitely transitioned this particular area from kind of bad news that was on the lake before to really good recreation and users. So you can see as this master plan is starting to form, we're able to bring in a lot of entertainment, a lot of family play, really creating this place. And then also with the way that the design elements went in, it was to create, as we were working with our partners, to create natural barriers for things like sediment that had been falling near the lakeshore, or certain water that is now being caught by retaining walls and stopping those types of nutrients from going to the lake. So really excited about the project. Just wanted to share and thank you for your support as we've gone throughout this process. Are there any questions?
Mayor, I have a question.
Sure, Carrie.
I just want to know, what day is the Utah Lake Commission party and concert, and who will be playing?
Oh, absolutely.
I think we need one
as
out
soon
there.
as it gets warm again.
Yes,
It's already
in the
turned
summer,
cold.
but I want to get it on my calendar.
Yeah, we'll have music. We'll have you all out there. We'll be building sandcastles together. So, great question. Thank you.
You just made us jealous. So thank you for that report.
Mayor,
Yes,
could I say one quick thing?
sure.
So we wanted to highlight this park and the project that's being implemented along your shoreline, and at the same time thank our partners. We have Utah County, their tourism tax advisory board. We have the legislature and Representative Brammer, who have brought not just a small investment, but really impressive investments to the table for our community members and our Utah Lake Commission board members to benefit from. So these are millions of dollars. Last year, we committed 15, 16 million on just these lakeshore projects. And it's really exciting to see them happening. And as more come to fruition, we'll be highlighting those as well.
All right, we'll now move on to item number 7, report from Dr. Gaddis, or if she's not here, it would be Scott, or maybe it's going to be a tag team. There's Dr. Gaddis.
Good morning, Mayor. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thanks for the opportunity to provide a quick update on the Utah Lake Water Quality Study. As you know, we've been working on scientific studies for the last couple of years, and we had a little bit of a setback during the pandemic, but those studies are wrapping up next year, and should be available for us to brief you on and to feed into our next steps, which are implementation planning to improve water quality in Utah Lake. Our science panel has been busy this fall putting together an interim response to the original charge questions that the steering committee had posed to them. Those are drafted and ready for the steering committee to review. Next week, we have a meeting on Tuesday. It's a public meeting. Anyone's welcome to join us. So we'll be briefing the steering committee on those. They'll have an opportunity to review them, and then we'll make those, we'll final those and make those public early in the new year. The next phase of work that we're beginning, we really began at our last meeting and we'll really kick off on Tuesday, is our implementation planning. Scott Daly, who's online, has put together, at the request of the steering committee, a comprehensive framework for how we will evaluate and engage in implementation planning. So that would include a number of scenarios that would look at water quality improvements, from wastewater treatment upgrades to stormwater improvements to agricultural improvements at the watershed level, as well as in-lake actions that may improve water quality. So we'll be putting that together over the next couple of months, and the modeling that will be necessary to support that work is in progress. The lake model is well on its way. The watershed model is just getting going. And we went through a quite robust process to select the appropriate modeling tools. so that we can be sure to answer all of the questions that we have and that we know you have in terms of feasibility and time that it will take to restore water quality in the lake, as well as appropriate targets and goals to meet the management desires of Utah Lake. So that's all in progress. We'll get things really moving on that phase 3 of the project on Tuesday with our steering committee. And I just want to acknowledge that I know this feels like it's taking forever, and science can do that. And so I just want to acknowledge and appreciate the Commission's patience as we go through a very deliberative and scientific approach to understanding what will be best for Utah Lake. 2 other quick updates. We received a portion of, we helped with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands appropriation for harmful algal bloom treatment on Utah Lake this summer. We worked closely with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands as well as their contractor to provide an independent monitoring and analysis of the various treatments that were deployed at a couple of marinas in Utah Lake. And in short, we'll have a report out by the end of the year. I expect there will be a briefing of a legislative committee during the session. But in short, what we found is that the treatments are working, but they only work for about 1 week. And so the company that we've been working with has been alternating the types of chemicals that they add to the marina to keep algal blooms at bay. And they seem to work for about a week. So it's a very intensive and active management tool that I think probably does have a role, certainly in the medium term, short and medium term, to ensure that the lake is safe and desirable for recreation. Got a couple other ideas of additional things that we may try out if we get a bloom early enough in the fiscal year, well, early enough next year to meet the fiscal year that we have funding for. And then last, I wanted to, if you haven't had a chance to dive in and review the governor's budget, there is a $25 million appropriation or recommended appropriation in the governor's budget for Utah Lake that would come to DEQ for water quality improvements and preservation of the lake. It would be ARPA dollars, so these are federal funds, and the eligibility requirements of those dollars are for water quality improvements. So we are working with the governor's office and with legislators and certainly with all of you, assuming that those funds move forward, to propose a combination of wastewater, stormwater, and in-lake and outreach and education work that would have a meaningful impact on water quality in Utah Lake. We're very excited about this recommendation. I think it'll give us a real jump start on, improving water quality as our study continues. So that's my update. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I would have questions, but I think it'd be premature to think of some options for that $25 million. That's I did not know that about this, pending budget, So would you think that there would be, as far as the water quality, would you think that might be some grants to local treatment plants? I mean, what are some just high level options?
Yeah, I mean, we've been kicking around a couple of ideas. With these ARPA dollars, there's been sort of 2 approaches I've observed. One approach is to, prescribe specific projects for those dollars, and another is to create a competitive process for those dollars. I tend to lean towards the competitive process because I think it brings new ideas to the table and maximizes the impact of our funding. But we'll be working with legislators and others to figure out what the best approach would be. But certainly some grants for wastewater upgrades. There's a lot going on. Provo City, Spanish Fork City, Payson City are all building new treatment facilities. There may be an opportunity there for some grant dollars to set them up in a way that water quality improvements are perhaps even greater than what's currently required by regulation. Certainly we know that stormwater is an important source of pollution to the lake, that we haven't really meaningfully tackled yet. And with all of the growth projected for the county, there's a lot to do there. So some demonstration projects perhaps, or even some stormwater treatment perhaps at targeted areas. What's exciting is our watershed modeling efforts will identify critical source areas within the watershed. So we should be able to, we will know where those dollars will go the furthest in terms of pollution reduction. And then certainly we understand clearly that there's a desire for some of these dollars to go to in-lake work, whether that's targeted dredging of, the highest nutrient sediments in the lake, or perhaps some additional funding for another season of harmful algal bloom treatment, or even perhaps nutrient inactivation, which has worked in some other lakes, though usually those are deeper lakes, where you try and tie up the phosphorus in the sediment rather than remove it with alum treatment or something along those lines. And then outreach and education, there's a number of ideas out there. Certainly, communicating to residents best practices for residential, lawns and gardens and pet waste to try and reduce the pollution coming from stormwater. All the way to, there's been discussions of creating some sort of education center or research facility for Utah Lake. So can't do all of that with $25 million, but we can do a lot. And I'm really excited to work with everyone to figure out the best use of those funds.
Okay. Thank you for that report. Is there any questions for Dr. Gaddis?
One thing that at least is a general tenor in the legislative side is, there were ARPA funds given to the state and ARPA funds given to the cities. It is very likely that the legislature is going to lean towards incentivizing with state level funds, so long as the cities are using city level funds to achieve the objectives, and those would be tied together. So, just kind of keep an eye on that. And, the governor's budget is, all of the agency heads are good soldiers, and they talk about the governor's budget, and the legislature will take it under advisement. And so
with
I'll
that,
leave it at that.
Representative, I thought it was interesting with our ARPA funds that we were able to request for the match. Now, as a legislature, you gave 50 million in match, and we had over $1 billion of requests. Almost all of those were water related. And I think that shows the need for good, safe water infrastructure, as well as what Erica has talked to us today, that there are a lot of needs in our cities and in our counties and in our state, that everyone is focused. And I hope that we can allocate more ARPA dollars, matching dollars to those projects to municipalities.
I would concur. Yeah.
I'll note that, and duly noted, Representative Brammer, governor's budget is first step in the budget process. In addition, I will note that there's an additional 100 million for that local matching grant program, in addition to the 50 million that's already gone through. So that's also in the governor's budget. I'm not sure exactly how that will roll out, assuming that it's funded, which obviously I shouldn't assume. Since clearly legislative decision.
Okay. Thank you for that report. Appreciate it. Sam, we've been waiting to hear from you. So we'll turn some time over to Sam for a couple of things on the staff report here, A, B, and C.
I appreciate your anticipation, Mayor. I know I'm always the favorite agenda item. I'd like to think it's not just because it's usually 3 minutes or less. So the first item I wanted to report onto the board is our Adopt a Shoreline program. This program's been around for several years. It was started by my predecessor, Luke Allen, and it was in response to a 2013 survey the commission did to the public, trying to find out what were their concerns to do with the lake, what they'd like to see changed. And one thing that was mentioned was garbage on the shoreline and at the access points. So Luke started this Adopt a Shoreline program, and we've been operating it now for, I believe, we're at, I think, 7 or 8 years potentially. So I wanted to highlight a couple of statistics to show the success the program has had so far. Especially in this year, you'll notice the numbers are, at least in my opinion, quite impressive. Year to date in this fiscal year, so we're talking less than 6 complete months so far, we've already had almost 1,200 volunteers participate. with a total of over 1,700 hours, which is a value with the standard volunteer wage of $27.62 an hour, of over $46,000. Of the areas that are adoptable for people to care for long-term, 39 out of the 45 are currently adopted. So in comparison, last year, in the full fiscal year, we had 175 volunteers, 350 hours with a value of $9,450. I did also want to highlight over the last several fiscal years how adoption rates have increased and remained steadier towards the top. Back in FY 2018, unfortunately, that's the first year I personally recorded how many we had adopted. I know when I came on in 2016, so fiscal year 2017, we only had 1 adopted. But we moved to the end of FY 18, we had 9 out of 27, FY 19, 20 out of 27, and those were the 27 public access points. In FY 20, demand was so popular because people were learning more about the program. We also got it approved with DWR's dedicated hunter program for hours that we actually had to add areas for people to adopt. We added sections of trail, public parks like Sunset Beach Park and others. And so we bumped up to 41 and then 45, and we are currently at, we did drop down to end of fiscal year, or after the end of fiscal year 21, we did drop down 2 groups. So we're working to fill 6 spots right now on that. So there's a lot of great information on our website, but wanted to highlight how much the program has grown and succeeded. One particular element of why this year's numbers are so high is we did something this year we've never done before. I mentioned this briefly at our September meeting, but that was literally 4 days after the event, and I had not compiled our report yet. So this is some of the statistics from that cleanup. Now, this is in honor of the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 Day of Service. And we organized for the first time ever 30 cleanups in one day. The previous largest scale effort was thanks to Vineyard City. We did 1 cleanup, and I think we had over 200 volunteers. And that was back in 2017. And we've had pretty similar numbers in a couple years since. But we had 30 groups. So we had all 27 public access points and a couple additional areas adopted. We only had, you'll notice at the very bottom of my slide, only 17 of the 30 groups filled out the report. But based off of those 17, we had 1,060 volunteers in one day who did 1,349 hours of service, a total value of over $36,000 to the commission and this effort to keep the lake shoreline clean of garbage. Now, obviously that's wonderful, and we'd love to do that again. And we've talked about ways where we can expand our large scale efforts. We've talked about other holidays, like we've done Earth Day before at Vineyard City. We've partnered before on that, and we've done International Coastal Cleanup Day in September before as well. However, the Adopt a Shoreline program does function primarily by itself. It's meant to be hands-off and self-guided with some supervision from our staff in order to expand the approach because we have limited staff hours. Now, to forecast for the future, I went and adjusted. Oh, if you go back, sorry. Skip without you. I know, right? See, Vineyard, it wasn't me. It keeps slipping on you. So sorry, my apologies. We adjusted the numbers to if all 30 groups had reported. I based off an average. That number would have jumped to over 1,800 volunteers, almost 2,400 hours. And it looked like about an additional $20,000 worth of value if we had gotten all that reporting in. So that's an estimate for you. Carrie, please.
I know I talk too much on these things, but I just had an idea for you on volunteer hours. It's very hard for people after they leave to think, go back and fill out a report. I would suggest that you develop a QR code that everyone who comes can scan it with their phone and type it in while they're there.
That is a wonderful suggestion. We tried that. So we did send out the link in advance. We also provided a QR code, tried to make it as easy as we can. I think in the future, something we do need to do better is there's options like offering a gift card incentive for a drawing that I've seen as a student at BYU. Plenty of times I filled out a survey just to try and get a gift card. I was starving, okay? But I think there are a lot of ways we'll look at trying to improve that so we can gather better data. But we were really excited to see how well that went, and we hope to continue to supplement the ongoing annual efforts with these large-scale cleanups. The other 2 items I wanted to speak to, the first is, if our laptop decides to show my next slide, because Eric does a great job pushing those buttons, our photo contest wrapped up for 2021. These are a few of the winning photos from that contest. Just wanted to highlight them because I'm a little biased, but they're my personal favorites. We will be sending out a form, as we do every year at the end of the year, to the board. I'll go out later today. For those on the board who may not be aware from previous years, each year at the end of the photo contest, the commission staff puts together some of the highlighted photos from that contest, and each board member, each entity on the board, can request one of those that will be printed from the commission budget to be displayed in public offices. So I'm sure somewhere in this building, not in this room, I guess we haven't hit that high of a list yet with Central Utah Water, but there are all displayed across the county in the various city offices, in some of the state agencies, and also Central Utah Water and Utah County. So we will send that out. Please do make sure you submit that as soon as possible. We try to make sure we have them at the next available meeting. And if we get it fast enough, we could have it for you in January at the special meeting that was requested. But other than that, it was a great contest. We had, I believe, in our two main categories, over 180 submissions, which about pretty equal with the previous year. In comparison, in 2015, we had 30. We've been on an uphill increase every year as the awareness increases of that contest. Last but not least, on my slides, just wanted to give you a teaser for our upcoming Utah Lake Fish Fest. This is an event we started last winter. We wanted to have a different take on a fishing tournament. Oftentimes fishing tournaments are 1 or 2 days. They're in one location. Everybody goes en masse. They have to bring their fish back, weigh them, measure them, etc. We wanted to make this more of a welcoming to those who might not want to put in that much time or don't have as much flexibility in their schedule. So the Fish Fest is actually an online contest. So we use a form where they actually take pictures of the fish they collect and they submit them through that form for points into a raffle drawing for prizes. So it's extremely flexible. We run it over 9 days. They can do it on their schedule, however many they want to, whenever days they want to during that time period, and can submit those photos for points. We also, as I mentioned, we like to do it off of species instead of who caught the biggest fish. We got with DWR last year and ranked the various species of fish you can get in Utah Lake according to difficulty in the winter. For instance, white bass is much easier to catch than walleye. So walleye gets 500 points versus white bass gets 5 points. And those go towards raffle entries. So Al Sporting Goods partners with us on these contests. And we had some great prizes, everywhere from fishing gear to some gift cards and a variety of things. But we're looking forward to having this again. We are moving it a little bit earlier. Last year we did it this year, calendar year, we did it in February and there wasn't any ice. We did not pitch this specifically as an ice fishing event. People are welcome to fish from the shoreline, from a boat if there's no ice, but we wanted to scoot a little bit earlier in the year to try and take advantage of any ice. January is the best month for that at Utah Lake. So put that in your calendars if you would. January 14th through 22nd, we'll be running the Fish Fest at Utah Lake again.
Will you be sending us a link that we can put on our city websites and our city newsletters?
We'd be happy to do so. Okay, thank you so much for the offer. Any questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Oh, I just wanted to thank you. That's a ton of work. That's awesome. One of the things that we're fighting oftentimes are a give up attitude towards the lake or an apathy towards the lake. And I love every single thing that you've done on this. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, board.
Great report, Sam, and that was more than 3 minutes, by the way. Okay. Okay, we'll just review the following meeting schedule. We will have a meeting in January 13th and March 17th, June 16th, September 15th, and December 8th. And if other meetings are necessary, we know the process to make that happen if we need to have one even in the middle of the session or what it might be. So we'll now move on to public comment. If anybody would like to make public comment, we invite you to come to this little podium here and limit your remarks to about 3 to 5 minutes. We'll now open up to public comments.
Hi, my name is Ben Abbott. I'm a professor of ecosystem and aquatic ecology from Brigham Young University. And I'm here not representing the university, just in my capacity as a citizen and lifelong resident of Utah Valley. And there just were 2 points that I wanted to bring to the attention of the commission. The first one is regarding the Utah Lake Restorations Project. And this, of course, has been discussed ever since the Utah Lake Restoration Act in 2018. I have met with literally dozens of scientific and engineering and legal experts on this project. And I have found none who believe that it's a viable or beneficial proposal. And I know that there are individuals that support it, but when we've looked at their proposal in detail, And we believe that, first of all, it's very likely to be technically impossible for the work to be done that they're describing. Second, and more importantly, in my opinion, were they to accomplish what they're proposing, it would be extremely damaging to the lake ecosystem. It would change many of the attributes about Utah Lake that currently make it so resilient. And one of the things that has been discouraging to me as a community member is that they're sharing a message about the lake that's not based in reality. They're talking about a very negative trend, that things are getting worse, that the lake system is broken or dying. Those are terms that I've heard them use. That's the opposite. I mean, as we've seen today, there are really wonderful things going on at Utah Lake. The long-term satellite record shows a decline in algal blooms. People are rediscovering this lake. And so I'm very concerned about this project, and I hope that there's a way. I understand the commission is limited in what they can advocate for, but it seems like repeal of HB 272 or the Utah Lake Restoration Act would be the best way to stop this kind of potential negative project. Now, the second point is less kind of urgent and alarming as the first one. I really appreciate Representative Brammer's approach to the Utah Lake Authority and getting lots of input. And he's even been indulgent and generous enough to speak with me several times about this. But I do have concerns about the timing of this bill. Lots of things are going in the right direction. We're seeing a turn in the lake. We're also seeing funds that are potentially going to be available. And then this big elephant in the room, the Islands Project, which really could affect the lake system fundamentally. And so my question isn't about, we completely share the value of wanting more resources and more organization and coordination for the lake. It's just a question of, is now the right time to kind of reshuffle and reorganize the governance of the lake? Or would this make sense in a year or two when we have the lakes or the state's scientific study available to us? So we have recommendations about what the best changes would be. We also know a little bit more about the political environment. So I'm sure that was probably more than 3 minutes, but thank you very much for listening to those comments.
Is there anybody else present that would like to make public comment?
Great. I'm Adam Johnson. Today I'm representing Conserve Utah Valley, and also a recent coalition that was formed called the Utah Lake Conservation Coalition. And that represents about 20 different environmental organizations here within Utah. I just have one question for you, Representative Brammer. I really appreciate your willingness to hear us out on this bill and receive feedback. You mentioned that would become public for the Utah Lake Commission in a few weeks. Would you be willing to also release that to public for feedback? Is that something?
I don't have like a place to release it. If you send me, like, I can email it to Ben if that works. I'm not like, I don't have some media arm that I can.
For sure.
But you know, but I'm happy to send it to whoever.
Great, and I'm happy to pass you my email too. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Greg Carling. I'm also a professor at BYU in the geology department and a member of the Utah Lake Science Panel. But I guess like Ben, I'm coming as a citizen of Orem. I just expressed some concerns over, I guess in particular, I just echo what Ben said about the timing of the Utah Lake Authority bill. I feel like the commission and all the stuff all the work that Sam is doing is making a lot of progress. And I know the science panel has been working hard for years, and the steering committee to try to understand the lake. So I'm just concerned that something like the Utah Lake Authority bill could just come in and say, all right, well, we don't really care about all the work that's been done. We're just going to start over from scratch. So anyway, yeah, so I'm just concerned about the timing. I'm thinking, like Erica mentioned, the scientific studies are slow, but I think it's worth waiting it out. We have some of the world's top experts on algal blooms and lakes on the committee. I'm not one of the world's experts. I'm one of the local experts, but there's other people on there. Anyway, so yeah, I guess I am just concerned about the timing of that. Thanks.
Oh, never had so much public comment.
My name is Danny Dudley. I'm an undergraduate student at BYU. I'm studying business strategy and environmental science. And I also have a few concerns about the Utah Lake Authority bill and the potential that that creates. I was trying to do my research on the kind of the ramifications of that authority bill. And one of the concerns that I've heard discussed about the Utah Lake Commission is that it is subject to some other competing interests. And so each person on this commission represents another city or another entity. And the Utah Lake Authority doesn't actually solve any of those competing interests, and also creates, in my understanding, the potential to be, make more final decisions. And, my business strategy, I guess, major is teaching us to learn to assess the risks of different investments and learn to assess the risks of different management decisions. And, I feel that the Utah Lake Authority bill is really just creating a system where you can make finalized decisions at a faster pace, like the Utah Lake Restoration Project, so-called the Island Project, has, is my understanding it to be. And, that project itself, I think, is a very financially risky decision. I'm not an environmental expert like the professors, so I can't really speak about the ecology of it, but it just does not really make sense to me from a financial perspective, why we would, spend millions of taxpayer money towards building artificial islands that are like unlikely to be actually completed. And I also want to know like who's potentially going to benefit from that project, what people are making money off of that, and what's the financial viability of that. So I just wanted to voice those concerns, not really from an environmental perspective, but more from a business or financial perspective. I'd be curious to know what financial experts are a part of that Utah Lake Restoration Project, and if it really is a financially wise decision. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I didn't sign up to speak or anything. My name is Sullivan Love. I'm the Water System Manager and Conservation Coordinator for Vineyard City. I also sit on the board at Timpanogos Special Service District, also on the Technical Committee for Lake Commission. I would just like to throw some words of support out to Representative Brady Brammer. When this bill first came out, he was hit pretty hard from a lot of different entities. I discussed that a little bit with him myself, and I appreciate the efforts that he's made to reach out to the various entities and receive feedback, and to help craft a bill that would be more conducive and acceptable by the entities that are reaching out. And I feel like we've got a lot of good stewards that are watching out for Utah Lake and trying to do what is best, what they feel is best for Utah Lake, because it is a gem for the valley. I haven't spent a lot of time out there other than just past 4th of July. I took my family out there, and I just that short amount of time I was out there, there was a love that was gained for Utah Lake, and seeing what a great recreation potential it is. And so that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others?
I'm Elizabeth Currit, and I'm also a BYU student. I study environmental science and sustainability. I'd also like to voice a few concerns, more from an ecological perspective, but I also echo what Danny said about financial concerns with so-called islands or Utah Lake Restoration Project. We know that the Utah Lake is on an upward trend. It's been improving in all senses of the word, improving ecologically. And to attempt such a project at this time to dredge and build islands would be very ecologically destructive, and, as Ben said, likely very impossible from an engineering perspective as well. So as someone who studies environmental sciences, wants to dedicate my life to this, this is very concerning to me, and I don't think the project has been thought through very well. They have not involved PhD level environmental scientists or ecologists or anyone who knows much about these issues. So in investigating this project, I also have found many concerning things that I do not support with this. Thank you so much.
Any other comments?
I won't go there, Brady. I did find that comment that you made interesting. I like robust conversations. One thing I do know is this has been being discussed, I think, since 1989. There's a lot of science on it. Bill 77, I believe, proposed this plan originally. So I've had the opportunity to hear from a lot of scientists at the PhD level and read some of their studies that are peer reviewed, and also listen to geotechnical scientists that have talked about its possibilities as being productive. So I would love to hear that on both sides and kind of see that comparison. I think that's critical, especially when we get up and we talk about these things in a body like this. And as you saw, this affects my city in a really big way. And if, especially as you go around and you talk to people, I would like to see those comparisons. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you for that input and your voice. We'll now just move to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and I'll call for vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll stand adjourned.